cold, so we need to get going. Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarian. Tēnā koutou nā mana here, no mai, haere mai. Haere mai ki tēnei wharekarakia a te atua. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome to all from near and far to our sanctuary. This morning, our worship is out of this world. Gravity has released us to see ourselves in a new and profound way. Karen Johnston tells us how. Humans make maps, choosing some stars, ignoring others, to project our imaginations into the heavens. These maps shift over time across cultures. Names change for the same assemblage of bright points. Drinking Gourd, Big Dipper, Plow, Lost Hunters, Satarishi, and it's not really the Big Dipper, but Matariki, just because. Humans make constellations by connecting stars. Humans make meaning by connecting stories. Story to story, to narrative to story. Some blaze bright, some are faint, most are backdrop to the great and mundane human unfolding. Let us imagine the stories of our lives as a starry universe above our heads. As members of this congregation, we are tasked and trusted to draw constellations in this, our beloved small universe. May the stories we connect draw constellations that reflect a shared ministry that calls out the best in us. Let us hold a quiet moment now as we light our chalice. Henry David Thoreau wrote in his journal on February 2nd, 1841, a child asked his father what became of the old moon, and he said, "It was cut up into stars. Consider the light. Light out of darkness. Light begets light. The light which the God of Genesis brought out of the darkness is the light that became our world. Our sun's light, reflecting off our moon, is eclipsed, but then returns to us as our earth quietly moves out of its way. In our current scientific understanding of the origins of the universe, the light of everything that exploded from not quite nothing is the light that became the maybe everything of which we are barely a part. This light we now kindle here will become a light for each of us to carry forth. As we find our way through the shadows on our path, let us be grateful for the light in our lives, even as we honored the dark from which the light came. Please join me in our covenant in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its service is its prayer. To to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other and with our God. Please stand if able to sing Spirit of Life. Well, in spite of school holidays, it looks like we have somebody, a few people that might come forward, listen to a story. I know it sounds narcissistic, but I really love Clayton. Your sister's not too bad either. I'm certain about that. Don't be a jerk. Well, today we're kind of thinking about perspective. Anybody have an idea what perspective is? Oh, two hands.
It's the way that different people look at different things.
Can you beat that?
That's literally the definition of perspective, so not really.
No, okay. Well, this is a story I've read before here, but like all good stories, it bears repeating once in a while. And it's called They All Saw a Cat. The cat walked through the world with its whiskers, ears, and paws. And this child saw a cat. And the dog saw a cat. Down Waldo. And the fox saw a cat. Come on, behave. They all saw the cat. The cat walked through the world with its whiskers, ears, and paws. And the fish saw a cat. And the mouse saw a cat. And the bee saw a cat. And they all saw the cat. The cat walked through the world with its whiskers, ears, and paws. And the bird saw a cat. And the flea saw a cat. And the snake saw a cat. And I know you don't know what these are in New Zealand. The skunk saw a cat. You know. And the worm saw a cat. And the bat saw a cat. Yes, they all saw a cat. Yes, they all saw a cat. Kind of patchwork cat. A child and a dog and a fox and a fish and a mouse and a bee and a bird and a flea and a snake and a skunk and a worm and a bat. The cat knew them all. And they all knew the cat. And the cat walked through the world with its whiskers, ears, and paws. And then it came to some water. And imagine what it saw. So that's perspective. I'll bet sometimes, even within our own families, we see not just cats, but a lot of things differently. What's your favorite food?
Butter chicken. Eva does.
Do you both like butter chicken? No, none of this, I guess. Shh.
Yeah.
What? Family conference here.
Do you like sushi? Yes.
Do you have a favorite? You don't have a favorite food? Everything you like everything, or don't like everything?
Do you like kale?
Nope.
Nope. No perspective there, they agreed. Okay. Well, that's what perspective is. When you're part of a Unitarian congregation, I'm not quite sure how many people are here today, but they all have a perspective, and they're happy to share it. Keeps my life interesting, because I have a perspective too, and they're all wrong. So, do you have any joys or concerns to share today? No? Do you want to go? Do we have? Child? Oh, you child? That's why we're here on time. And not just for morning tea. That's good. Okay, let's sing you all downstairs. Do you like our ads during the show? It's actually convenient for the moment. I now invite those of you who have joys or concerns to come forward at this time.
Good morning. My name is Pien. I'm originally from the Netherlands. And when I was going through newspapers this morning on my own, I read through the Dutch newspaper, and I have not got the full story. I didn't have time to read it all, but I did notice that in the Netherlands on Tuesday, a journalist was murdered for being a journalist, and which I think is very worrying. People get killed for writing the stories that we all need to know about. So, I don't know the regular story. I will read up more about it, but I do think this is rather sad. And I'm going to close that door.
Thank you.
My name is Max, and Alexandra Bruce back there sends me bits of humor every once in a while. And this week she sent me one which I see all the gray hair around it. It said, being 20 in the 70s was a lot more fun than being 70 in the 20s.
Good morning. I'm David, and I'd like to share with you a joy that happened just at tea time last night. And what I discovered was the recipe for a happy marriage. And it happened this way, that Nan and I have been rather not available for each other. Every been used to doing a website. And Marion has been spending every minute preparing to feed 130 people at a dinner at the Methodist Church yesterday, and we were both heartily sick of each other. And and Marion was cooking this meal for the 130 homeless on our kitchen at the same time as I was trying to prepare a meal for two of us in the same kitchen. I had about this much of the kitchen. I thought, how can you cook a decent? I wanted to blow up and say, how can you cook a decent meal in this tiny amount of space? And so I thought I'd make a vegetarian hamburger, put it in the oven, and then I thought those vegetarian hamburgers I couldn't blare by themselves. These are really good sauce. So that I what made them a sauce. So I put a beef cube, and I thought that's got the right flavour, not much else. So I thought let's get some wine to go with it. So I put in half a cup of wine, and then I thought that's still a bit blare, and so I put in chopped onion, and it went on and on like this. All quite simple things that only occurred to me as I was doing them. There was no plan, whatever in this. I just about finished it in only about quarter of an hour, and I thought, we have got the veggies in this, and so I got some beans out of the freezer. I thought, how can I cook these without another place to cook them on? So I thought, the sauce that I just made could become a stir-fry sauce. Took the beans, and it was delicious. And Bethel Marion thought it was delicious. And so we didn't argue about anything all night.
My name's Paul.
Two memorial candles, unfortunately. Two people I know in the music scene died in the past 2 weeks. I've had two people I know in the music scene die in the past 2 weeks. One of them was Mike Gallagher, who was a superb guitarist, great musician. There's a story that he taught himself something a guitar piece of one of his sort of guitar heroes that he, got off a CD or something, and he eventually taught himself to play this, and then subsequently discovered that the recording he learned it from had been double tracked, so which indicates skill, which he had in spades. And the other was Andy Smith, the Morris dancer. Me and he didn't always get on, but I certainly wouldn't have wished him dead. And yes, so a candle of remembrance for both of them.
Hello, I'm Lynn. So this is a candle for all the cliches that come true in your life. I did discover this week that the last straw can break the camel's back. We have a high chair that has served well for our grandchildren for the last 11 years, so that's been such a good little workhorse, and as our 3-year-old grandson is just coming to a point where he doesn't need it so much, we have another little friend whose baby is about 18 months old, so I was hoping it would just sort of keep going. but I had a large container that I have often balanced on this high chair in the past. And as I went to put in some cottons into the top of it, suddenly the whole thing exploded. The high chair went everywhere, and so it went just everywhere. And it actually managed to break both the arms of the high chair, and the tray had exploded off, and the chair folded into these little bits. Anyway, my husband said to me, "Oh, it looks like you might have to go and buy a new one." And then he looked at it and he said, "Oh, well, I think we should have a go at fixing this." So he got out some wood and he glued it on. And by the end of him putting these huge sash clamps on and everything else, it looked like a torture chamber chair with the wires. All it needed was wires coming off to look like an electric chair contraption. It was just horrific. And then he said to me, "Oh, well, all you have to do now is make a cover for it." So I thought, okay. So get out the old geometrics and start measuring up. And I thought, oh, yeah, okay. So I've never made one before, and I had to do it without a pattern, but we made this cover for it. And it looked really good, and I thought, well, there we go. There's the cliche of the last straw breaking the camel's back, and now we have, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, but you can make a damn fine leather wallet at times.
The landfill thanks you.
I'm Emily, and this is a candle of joy. It is my twin uncle's 80th birthday today, and I actually got to participate in their rural Minnesota party via Zoom this morning, and so, yeah. I'm Kate. We saw a play last night called The Life of Galileo, which unfortunately I think was last night. I think last night was the last night, so I'm sorry if this is going to come across as a promotion. But the thing that it got me thinking about, so I'm a scientist, I'm a geologist, and this play, so Galileo lived in the early 1600s. And the play, of course, was about his developing of science and his relationship with the Catholic Church and the government, well, the Catholic Church. And it just was so poignant for me to be, I'm from the US, and to be looking at our world now and how science and religion and the tension between science and religion in New Zealand, but especially in the US, and how religion twists and dominates, and science just tries to keep going, but there's so much uncertainty in science, and people like certainty a lot. And so there's this compelling passion for faith, the power, incredible power in faith. And it's hard to be questioning and not knowing answers all the time. And it was really striking to me seeing this play and thinking, 400 years ago, we've been doing this for hundreds of years. And so I don't know, I guess it's a joy and a concern that we're still going.
We were at the same yesterday, and I was raised on Galileo's thinking, so it was, and I've spent most of my life in the ministry trying to make people understand science isn't anti-faith, and faith isn't anti-science. So I appreciated it for much the same reasons. Unfortunately, that only seems to be true amongst Unitarians. Well, That's why we've got to keep going. I light this candle for those joys and concerns of our heart, which include the people of New South Wales, say, struggle for the latest wave of the pandemic. Let us stand to sing our Koha hymn. When I offer a sermon topic of your choice at our annual service auction, I take a big risk. David Fougere might win. Today's musing is courtesy of David. He asked me to reflect on the overview effect. The what? It turns out to be awe and wonder on steroids. The term was created by astronaut Frank White. The overview effect is a cognitive shift in awareness reported by some astronauts during spaceflight, often while viewing the Earth from outer space. As of 17th of June, 2021, only 570 astronauts from 41 countries have had the opportunity to experience it. Existentially, it could be the best example yet of being spaced out. When in space, astronauts have repeatedly reported inexplicable euphoria, a cosmic connection, or an increased sensitivity to their place in the universe. The experience sounds like the ultimate high or the ultimate enlightening. It would appear that without trying, astronauts are able to attain a mental state similar to meditating Buddhist monks. So what is happening when the human body is in space? Does zero gravity create new connections in the brain? Or is it a natural human response to the vastness of space and realizing just how small we are in comparison? Whatever the reason, even when astronauts are back on Earth, they have changed profoundly. On March 6, 1969, Rusty Schweikart experienced a feeling that the whole universe was profoundly connected. At the time, he was on a postponed spacewalk outside his Apollo 9 lunar module, carrying out tests for the forthcoming moon landings. He described the euphoric sensation this way. When you go around the Earth in an hour and a half, you begin to recognize that your identity is with that whole. That makes a change. It comes through to you so powerfully that you're the sensing element for man. 2 years later, Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, joint record holder with Alan Shepard for the longest ever moonwalk of 9 hours and 17 minutes, reported experiencing an overview effect. He described the sensation gave him a profound sense of connectedness with a feeling of bliss and timelessness. He was overwhelmed by the experience. He became profoundly aware that each and every atom in the universe was connected in some way. And on seeing Earth from space, he had an understanding that all the humans, animals, and systems were part of the same thing, a synergistic whole. It was an interconnected euphoria. The screensaver on my TV is a video of the Earth from the International Space Station. While it is mesmerizing, I don't experience the overview effect. It can't be experienced from Earth, only in space. So unless you have booked a ticket on a planned private flight to the space station, they are 55 million US each, then you probably won't. There are efforts to recreate it in virtual reality, but it hasn't yet been fully achieved. That being the case, I'm certainly not going to recreate it in my musings. But I did find a video that might give you a better sense of it. So let's see if I can get technology to behave. How it behave? I know it'll work. I tested it beforehand. It's gotta work because otherwise we're screwed.
1968, the crew of Apollo 8 became the first people to ever orbit the moon. While doing so, this happened.
All right, we're going to roll. Ready? Just prior to the subsolar point on the south side in the floor of it, oh my God, look at that picture over there. There's the coming up. Wow, that's pretty. Hand me a roll of color quick. Oh man, that's great. Where is it? Quick. Hey, calm down, Mama. Oh, I got it right. Oh, that's a beautiful shot.
Little did they know, but what the crew of Apollo 8 saw that moment changed their lives forever. And that same thing has also changed the lives of any other astronaut who's been to space to witness it. This is the story of a sight so radical, it causes an immediate cognitive shift that changes the lives and perspective of its spectators forever. And to understand what makes it so powerful, we first need to talk about Christopher Waltz's acting technique.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
If I were sitting where you're sitting, Mercy?
The acting method Christopher Waltz practices is called the Meisner technique. According to it, actors need to get out of their heads and act instinctively, through emotion, to their surroundings, to fully live and immerse themselves in the moment. So, what does it have to do with space? Nothing. But the intensity of this sight in space can truly be experienced only when witnessing it in space. And from here on Earth, watching a video, it's practically impossible to really feel it. The only way we can somehow apprehend the impact of that sight is to practice the Meisner technique ourselves, to immerse ourselves intellectually and emotionally in the experience of an astronaut. I want to ask you for just a couple of minutes to leave everything aside, have a seat, pop your earphones in, and try to really feel the following. After 68 hours of travel, you become one of the first 3 people in the world to ever orbit the moon. You are taking part in what is undoubtedly one of humanity's greatest achievements ever, and the eyes of the entire people of planet Earth are literally looking up to you. Only 24 people in history will have gone as far as you are now, an infinitesimal percentage of the planet's population, and you are part of that elite, one of the most exclusive minorities in the world. It's Christmas Eve back on Earth, but out here in this immeasurable and dark void that is space, it's quiet. Quiet as you've never heard before. Sound results from our ears detecting vibrations in the air. Since space is a vacuum, you continuously hear in it almost nothing. You've been constantly hovering, drifting afloat. Astronaut Sandra Magnus once said, "All of us understand what gravity is, but I would argue strongly that you have no idea what gravity is until you have left it, come back, and experienced that horrible force trying to push you into the ground." Feeling this intoxicating sensation for 3 days now, you understand exactly what she meant. 3 days. On Earth, people measure days based on the rotation of the planet causing sunrise and sunset. But out here in space, there are no such things anymore. There is no more meaning to hours or minutes or day or night. In space, there is no time. What are those 3 days exactly? You're not sure anymore. What you do know is that every wrong move, every wrong decision you make is fatal. But you've worked tremendously hard in the past 2 years, physically and mentally, to meet your mission around the moon with as little mistakes as possible. 2 whole years of preparations and anticipation for this moment, now. And then, something happens. In this metaphysical, yet indefinitely absolute experience, all of a sudden something appears in front of you. It's, in fact, the most obvious and trivial sight. You knew you were going to see it. But in actuality, nothing could have prepared you to witness it this way. Witness it with your own eyes.
Oh my God, look at that picture over there. There's the Earth coming up. Wow, that's pretty. Hand me a roll of color quick. Oh, man, that's pretty. Where is it? Quick. Hey, don't take that. It's not scheduled. Do anything, quick. Oh, I got it, Ray. Oh, that's a beautiful shot.
The radical sight astronauts see in space that literally changes their lives is home. Not the boundless cities and colossal mountains we know it as from within, but a floating marble, Earth in its fullness, right there in front of your eyes. Over and over, one after the other, astronauts testify of the striking effects seeing Earth from space had on them. They don't only talk about how majestically beautiful it is, but they mainly stress a certain emotional and cognitive shift they experienced because of it. A newfound realization about life and our place in the greater scheme of things. This strange phenomena has a name. It's called the overview effect. But to understand what is exactly the change they experience, we first need to go a bit deeper into what you actually see when you see Earth from space. Let's head back out there. When seeing Earth from space, the first thing you notice is how alive this orb is. In a matter of minutes, you move from the deserts of Africa to the forests of South America. You see the northern lights dancing, clouds forming, lightning strikes, cities switch on and then off. The entire natural spectacle that is our home is continuously altering in front of your eyes. From space, Earth is no longer this intangible term to describe the still surroundings around us. From space you realize Earth is its own entity, an ever-changing, ever-evolving organism. Another thing you can see only in space is how small Earth is. Everything you've ever heard, everyone you've ever known, everything can be covered behind your thumb. Seeing Earth like that, in all of its miniature glory, makes you fiercely internalize one thing. This tiny thing is so fragile. The last thing you see is not about Earth per se, but the setting in which Earth is in. It's floating, on its own, in the middle of a darkness so vast we cannot even begin to comprehend. There is nothing around it, and that inevitably strikes the understanding that Earth is entirely alone. So, what internal change does this all lead to? This is what I gathered is the best way to describe it. Observing Earth so alive, so tiny and fragile and lonely, makes us perceive our planet for the first time in history, from a perspective that had never been realized before. We understand that Earth is like a baby, a tiny, vulnerable infant that has no one else but us to take care of it. This striking and immediate understanding astronauts experience instills in them what I would see as a deep parental concern towards it. Astronauts testify returning to Earth with a profound sense of responsibility towards this lonely, tiny, fragile thing. They are determined to take care of it, to make the lives of all of Earth's inhabitants better, and to make the life of Earth itself better. From space, astronauts see more than anyone the interconnection of all life. There are no borders or pieces of land that belong to one group or another, but one unified home for all. The overview effect, in fact, has such a powerful influence over them that books have been written about it and psychological studies have attempted to explain it. Astronauts constantly go out and do talks trying to convey the feelings, and NGOs have even opened up with the sole aim of bringing people out into space so that they experience it for themselves. Besides having children, there's probably no other single experience in existence so instantaneously powerful, striking, and life-changing as the overview effect. But then I stumbled upon this picture. This picture was taken from the International Space Station in August of 2011. There's a saying that from space you can't see political borders, but this picture shows that, technically speaking, that saying is not true. This line right here is the border between India and Pakistan, illuminated by floodlights. As opposed to common belief, space actually shows us, clearer than anywhere else, our divisions. And not only between ourselves, but with nature as well. These scars Earth carries are the result of our doings. In the perspective of the overview effect, these are the times we mistreated this baby. But it's precisely when seeing these scars so clearly on the backdrop of a one consolidated Earth that we can understand the shift in perspective that's needed. Because just like a baby who has lungs and liver and heart and brain, all those separate parts that look different and act different, but must work together as one system to be sustainable, so do we. The different people of different countries, of different ethnicities of planet Earth must all learn to work together, despite our differences, and not keep each other apart, to be able to thrive. And it must start, first and foremost, with changing our perspective of one another and ourselves to a more complete, overviewed angle. What do you think? What are some ways we can come closer to someone who's different? Or how do we even overcome differences? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed or found value in this video, please also don't
I remember that Christmas Eve vividly. I was at my grandparents' in San Francisco for the holidays. I went out for a walk. The fog had lifted, and I had a clear view of the moon and marveled that 3 men were currently orbiting it. Ever since JFK and Sputnik, getting to the moon had been presented as the goal. It turned out to be much more. We were looking in the wrong direction. It was a step in our human evolution when we saw our fragile home hanging in space through the astronauts' eyes. And everything changed, not just for them, but for us all. We raced to the moon only to discover the Earth. Awe and wonder can do that, even for us down on Earth. It is never anticipated. Awe and wonder remove our blind spots. We can see reality and ourselves with greater clarity. And once seen, they can't be unseen. Awe and wonder are a powerful state characterized by amazement, fascination, or being moved and touched. Research has shown that 2 things in particular can promote a feeling of awe: aesthetic beauty and a sense of vastness. Nature in particular has been hailed as a great source of awe because not only are things like trees and flowers aesthetically pleasing to look at, but places like Milford Sound or a tramp through the Southern Alps can make one feel ever so small in comparison. When we think about the overview effect, viewing Earth from outer space might provide an even greater natural beauty in scaling vastness to transform awe into this life-changing state. Simply put, seeing our planet in a black sky not only makes it seem even more vibrant and beautiful, but seeing it as a collective whole promotes a feeling of unity and connectedness with the Earth. An experience of awe or of being overpowered can be channeled into positive
outcomes, even social transformation. And humanity may benefit rather than suffer from being made to confront the extreme in outer space and elsewhere. For instance, feelings of awe can be associated with increased creativity and ability to collaborate. When a person or community's sense of what is really real is transformed, particularly if this new reality is seen in a welcome light, there may be additional benefits, including increased morale and motivation. So where might the earthbound get a taste of this life-changing experience? I know this is going to sound self-serving. Worship in community, on all too rare occasions, has the capacity to lift us into this out-of-world dimension. At its best, worship creates the sense of connection and oneness that invites awe. From that overview, we are able to be a collective force for protecting this fragile island home and its inhabitants. May it be so. I invite you to stand for our closing hymn.
For extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the life, the warmth of the community, or the fire of conviction. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Do we have any notice?
returning to the scene of the crime.
More than one way.
But it's cold, so I know why you're up here.
It's cold, and it's cold on mountains too.
That's what I need.
This is an extraordinary coincidence because William and I quite decided that today was the best day to announce the mountain weekend coming up. So I think mountains are a great way to experience that bigger sense of life. So I'll put a note up on the back wall about the mountain and ski weekend for all coming who might be interested. And it's first weekend in September, and I'm a culprit.
Yeah. Is this the Monty Python dead parrot? Okay. Thank you. My closing words. Remember that the universe is so much larger than our ability to comprehend. Let us go forth from this time together with the resolve to stop trying to reduce the incomprehensible to our own petty expectations, so that wonder, that sense of what is sacred, can find space to open up our minds and illumine our lives.